LCJ Live. It's the second show of 2025. It's Sunday, January the 12th, 2025. Thanks so much for being here. We have a lot to talk about today, from the box office to the horrific events in California, Fly Eagles Fly, movies coming out this week, where award season is at, my thoughts on all that, and more. As always, send in your questions and your comments as I just pull things up here on LCJ Live. My thoughts and prayers are with everyone in California right now. It is just horrific what is going on. It's just terrible. If you have friends and colleagues and family members there, thoughts and prayers for them and what's going on. Today was supposed to be the Critics' Choice Awards, but right now that has been delayed 2 weeks as of this moment to Sunday, January 26th. I'm not sure that will even happen. We'll get into that here in a little bit on LCJ Live. As always, send in your questions and your comments. Let's go box office right now, and then we'll talk more about award season and more films and where everything is at. Number one is a brand new film for 2025. The first trip to the theater for me the other day, Den of Thieves 2 Pantera. Number one with $15.5 million. That's a good open for Lionsgate. That's a good open for this sequel to a film that came out 7 years ago and basically opened the same, about 15.2 million. I think back then it was distributed by STX. So Lionsgate with this. Lionsgate had a rough 2024. Only one of their films, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, made at least $40 million domestically. The rest were under that. Most films of theirs flopped last year, but they've got a big year ahead, especially the second half, towards the second half. Ballerina, the John Wick spinoff, is coming. Now You See Me 3, the latest Saw movie, and the Michael Jackson biopic, along with Flight Risk, which opens in 2 weeks, the Mel Gibson, Mark Wahlberg action movie, and The Unbreakable Boy, which comes out in February. So I think Lionsgate's going to have a better year this year than they did last year, and they're already off to a good start with a number one open for Den of Thieves 2 Pantera. But the family movies still did okay. Mufasa the Lion King number 2 with another 13.2 million. It's at 188.8 for Disney. And number 3, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which added $11 million. It's at 204.5 for Paramount. It's the biggest of the 3 Sonic movies domestically. The Sonic films have crossed $1 billion globally, and it's climbing up the charts of some of the biggest Paramount movies that are not Transformers movies of the last 25 years or so. Number 4 this weekend, Nosferatu with 6.8 million. It's at 81.8 for Focus Features. One of the biggest Focus Features movies ever. It's just a couple million behind Brokeback Mountain from 2005, and then just a little bit behind the Downton Abbey movie from 2019. By the way, I saw Den of Thieves 2 Pantera on Friday, and I had a good time with the second half of the film. The first half is slow, it's talky, it's kind of bland, and there's a rough scene with Gerard Butler, O'Shea Jackson Jr. at a party, and they get drunk, and have a scooter scene, and it's cringy. But when you get to the heist, I like the heist in Den of Thieves 2 Pantera because it is restrained in tone. It actually takes its time, but it's engaging enough. And then what follows is pretty compelling. So a strong second half, especially for the month of January, for Den of Thieves 2. Butler delivers, especially in some of those final scenes. So I like the second half. So I mildly recommend it. For January, you could do a lot worse than Den of Thieves 2. Fanimator 101, thanks for being here. Can't wait for Dogman in a few weeks. That's right. Dogman, the latest animated comedy from DreamWorks Animation, opens January 31st. And then Paddington in Peru is February 14. The Looney Tunes animated film, The Day the Earth Blew Up, which I've already seen, that opens Feb 28. So a lot of family films to come in January and February, along with the leftovers that we've had. Speaking of which, Moana 2, number 5, with 6.5 million. It's at 434.9 for Disney. And wow, it just passed Toy Story 4. Still one of the biggest animated films of all time, both of them are. And now on that chart, it has passed Toy Story 4. That is incredible. Number 6 this weekend, A Complete Unknown and Wicked basically tied. A Complete Unknown with 5 million. It has hit 50 million. A little more than that for Searchlight. and Timothy Chalamet with that Best Actor buzz. Wicked added 5 million. It's at 458.9 for Universal. The Golden Globes were last Sunday. Wicked won the Cinematic and Box Office Achievement Award. Emilia Perez won several awards, and The Brutalist took home Best Picture Drama. The Brutalist outside the top 10 this weekend, but just barely. 1.4 million in just 68 theaters. It has totaled 2.7 million. Goes to some IMAX theaters this coming weekend and officially goes nationwide on January 24. How many Oscar nominations will The Brutalist get? The Oscar noms, as of now, are coming out next Sunday. We'll talk about that and more coming up here in a moment on LCJ Live. Where are we? 8, Baby Girl. 3.1 million. It's at 21.7 for A24. After starting off slow, Baby Girl has picked up some momentum, and it's probably going to pass We Live in Time as well for A24 for the year. Nicole Kidman was a Golden Globe nominee. Some people thought she would win. I didn't think she would win for a few reasons. Number one, I don't like the film and the performance. Number two, she just won Best Actress in a Drama 3 years ago for playing Lucille Ball and being the Ricardos, so I didn't think the Globes would give it to her again. It went to Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here, which opens in select theaters this Friday officially. I like the film. I don't love it. Fernanda Torres gives a good performance. We'll see if she's an Oscar nominee, but Baby Girl is still making some money. Number 9 this weekend is a film called Game Changer. The estimate is somewhere between $2.1 and $2.8 million. And number 10 this weekend, The Last Showgirl. Pamela Anderson and Jamie Lee Curtis both scored SAG Awards nominations the other day for their performances in this. Pamela, also a Golden Globe nominee. Last Showgirl, in its official open nationwide, did $1.5 million. This weekend, there were early preview showings on Wednesday nationwide. I think that helped it put it over the top over The Brutalist to get into the top 10 this weekend. Will Pamela Anderson and Jamie Lee Curtis be on the Oscar ballot next week? Maybe Pamela. I'm not sure about Jamie Lee Curtis. SAG clearly loves her. They gave her that Everything Everywhere win a couple of years ago. I'm not a huge fan of The Last Showgirl. I think the writing is poor, and many of the scenes are just characters kind of looking around. It's not a very good film. Doesn't have a lot of substance to it. Speaking of the substance, how about that Demi Moore win last Sunday at the Globes? That was a great speech by her. We'll see how the rest of the things go this award season. A couple other box office films. Homestead added 1.1 million. It's at 19.3. It's going to pass Cabrini to be the second biggest Angel Studios film ever. The Fire Inside closing in on $8 million total for Amazon MGM. Nickel Boys is up to about $600,000 for Amazon MGM, and that expands to more theaters Friday. Don't have the money on September 5. How about Flow? With that Best Animated Feature win at the Globes last Sunday, more people going to see Flow, and it's now totaled $3 million. Hard Truths with Critics' Choice nominee Marion Jean-Baptiste opened in 22 theaters to 166,000. That's pretty good. Craven the Hunter's only made 24 million total. That's terrible. And Better Man, the Robbie Williams musical biopic, only made a little over $1 million in its nationwide expansion this weekend. It's only totaled 1.2 million for Paramount. It's not even doing great in the UK, where he's a phenom over there. I saw him on Graham Norton. The crowd was really into him and all that, but how come the movie's only made $5 or $6 million over in the UK? So, Better Man, not good for Paramount, but they've got September 5, the best movie of 2024, expanding nationwide this Friday. Golden Globe nominee for Best Picture, Drama. Critics' Choice nominee, Original Screenplay and Editing. Paramount was banking on a Best Picture nomination for September 5. I'm not sure it's going to happen. It should have been up for SAG Ensemble as well, but that didn't happen. Sing Sing also gets a re-release from A24 this Friday. A24 also was banking on the Oscar nominations being announced this Friday. But that's no longer happening. As of now, the Oscar nominations are coming out next Sunday, January 19th, at a time to be announced. Many people have said for years that the Oscar nominations announcement should be a primetime live event. And maybe the Academy is thinking that way. Instead of doing it early on a Sunday morning, maybe they would actually, on ABC, devote a half hour in prime time. I'm not sure which way they're going to go, or if it's just going to be a press release. It could go in any of those different directions. For films that are also coming out this coming weekend, one of them, Days, that comedy, with Keke Palmer, had nationwide pay preview screenings last night. It goes wide this weekend. Also, Wolfman, the latest with Julia Garner, the latest Universal monster movie, is probably going to be your number one movie next weekend. I think it'll do more than what Den of Thieves 2 does in week 2. Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare comes out. Back in Action. I'm going to be checking this out. Jamie Foxx, Cameron Diaz, that's on Netflix Friday. And Unstoppable, which I recommend, goes to Prime Video, I believe, on Thursday. It is with Jarrell Jerome and Jennifer Lopez, based on a true story. I like the first act. I like the third act. It's got problems in the middle, but if you stick with it, I saw this back in October at Film Columbia. If you stick with it, I liked Unstoppable, so check that out. Good story, good performances on Prime Video on Thursday. If you're just being here, joining us here on LCJ Live, as I mentioned, the Oscar nominations will be next Sunday. If they're early, we'll cover them here live at noon on LCJ Live. If they're at a later time, go to my social media for full coverage. We'll see what the Academy decides this week. Again, today was supposed to be the Critics' Choice Awards. I have a feeling that Critics' Choice may not end up happening completely. I have no idea. I have, no confirmations, none of that. But there is a part of me that looks at what Gene Smart wrote the other day, which is, should we not do all these award shows and instead donate the money that would have been spent on putting them together to worthy causes in this situation? I look at that and I go, maybe that is the case for most of the award shows this season. You could see Critics' Choice doing that. You could see SAG doing that, even though SAG is very late this year. It's just the Sunday before the Oscars. You could see the Independent Spirit Awards do that. Any of the smaller, and it's kind of wrong to say some award shows are bigger and better than others. But for some of these organizations that are already looking at this award season and going, all right, we've already had to delay some things, and we know that most people who will want to attend these shows are not going to be in the greatest of moods. Should they go on? And should we instead take the money and donate it to those who really need it during this time? You could see that end up happening with most of these shows. The BAFTAs will be interesting because, of course, that's in England. But for most of the shows here in North America, when you look at Critics' Choice, Spirit, SAG, maybe even the Annie Awards, some of the smaller ones, and I think if the money is donated to these causes instead, they will be applauded for that. It's always nice to watch these award shows. A lot of people work on them, work hard to put them together. It's just about, are the attendees going to want to be there, and how many viewers are you really going to get? I think the Oscars still goes on, and I think the Oscars will still happen on March 2nd, and here's my thought on that. Conan O'Brien, I think, was a great choice for this Oscar ceremony anyway, but he's one of the nicest guys in Hollywood. I've never met him, but I've heard very good things about him. And I think what he will do with the Oscars is keep it grounded and real and honest. And, there's buzz. Is there, just like the Grammys, is the Grammys going to be delayed? Is there going to be a telethon or a fundraiser component to the Grammys? Is there going to be that component to the Oscars as well? The Oscars is also global, and I think there are, everyone wants to have their Oscar moment, and the Oscars is kind of its own thing compared to the other award shows. So I think the Oscars goes on, and I think it still does happen March 2. I mean, anything can happen at this point, but I think it still goes on. It still goes on March 2, but it could be a different tone, a scaled back ceremony, and kind of a grounded ceremony, and could be a partial telethon as well. So I think there's a lot of possibilities with this, and we will see what happens as the award season goes on. As of now, Critics' Choice is 2 weeks from today, but we'll see if that stays. The SAG Awards voting opens up this week, and the Oscar nominations next Sunday. Fanimator 101, and then in March, when we were talking about animated films, Night of the Zoopocalypse, yes, that does open March 7th. So we'll see what happens with the awards season, and with all these new films opening up this week, some of the awards films going wide, and some new 2025 releases. For my thoughts later this week on Back in Action, and for box office results and the up-to-date award season news, go to X at LCJ Reviews, Instagram at LightsCamJackson, lights-camera-jackson.com. If you're here on YouTube, thank you. Subscribe to the channel. We go live every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern for LCJ Live. If you need a movie to see, I love September 5, the best film of 2024. Officially goes wide Friday. Go see September 5. Support that film. And we'll see how some of these other films do Sing Sing in wide release. Wolfman, One of Them Days, and the limited release of I'm Still Here. When we're back next Sunday, we may cover the Oscar nominations. We'll see what happens. We'll also preview some of the films opening up for the 24th, which includes Flight Risk, Steven Soderbergh, one of a few films he has for this year called Presence. I saw the trailer for Black Bag, which opens in March the other day. That looks pretty good. And we'll talk about where we're at for the rest of the awards season and everything going on. Fly, Eagles, Fly. Awesome game yesterday with SpongeBob and Patrick and Nate Burleson on Nickelodeon. And Fly, Eagles, Fly. Hope they win today. Thanks so much for being here today on this episode of LCJ Live. I appreciate it. Stay safe, stay well. Thoughts and prayers to California. And I'll see you next time on LCJ Live. Bye-bye.